Good morning, grade 9 students. Welcome to your geometry class. Our lesson for today is proving that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Textbook pages 367 until 374. Our objective is to determine whether a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Let us first watch this video about our lesson.
Find the values of x and y that would make w, x, y, z a parallelogram. If we want to know what values of x and y would make this quadrilateral a parallelogram, let's begin by first doing a little bit of review. Let's review what makes a quadrilateral a parallelogram. In particular, here we're talking about different angle measures. So let's take a look at what would make a quadrilateral a parallelogram and involves angle measures. One way to prove that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram is by showing that both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. In other words, this angle is congruent to this angle, and this angle is congruent to this angle. If a quadrilateral has both pairs of opposite angles congruent, then that quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So, in our case, we need to show that both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. Let's begin then by first identifying our pairs of opposite angles. In other words, what angles are opposite from one another? Well, let's take a look. Across from angle W is angle Y. That means angle W and angle Y are opposite angles. So we can write angle W and angle Y are opposite angles. Across from angle X is angle Z. So we can write that angle X and angle Z are opposite angles. Now that we have our pairs of opposite angles, we know in order for this quadrilateral to be a parallelogram, this angle must be equal to this angle, and this angle must be equal to this angle for opposite angles to be congruent. So, let's go ahead and write those equations then. We know that angle W must be equal to angle Y. Well, angle W is equal to 3x. So 3x must be equal to angle Y, which is equal to 84. So now we have an equation involving x. We can solve that and find the value of x. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next equation. We know angle x and angle z must be equal. Angle x is equal to 96. Angle z is equal to y plus 42. We can go ahead and we can solve this equation and find the value for y. Let's go ahead now and solve these two equations and get the value for x and the value for y. Our first equation is 3x is equal to 84. Since x is being multiplied by 3, we need to divide both sides by 3. So we divide the left-hand side by 3 and the right-hand side by 3. That means we get x is equal to 84 divided by 3, which is just equal to 28. So in order for this quadrilateral to be a parallelogram, x must be equal to 28. Next, we need to take the equation 96 is equal to y plus 42 and solve for y. Since 42 is being added to y, we need to subtract 42 from both sides. So we subtract 42 from the right-hand side and from the left-hand side. 96 minus 42 is equal to 54. That means y is equal to 54. So, in order for this quadrilateral to be a parallelogram, x must be equal to 28 and y must be equal to 54.
So let's have the first theorem, Theorem 6-8. If both pairs of opposite sides of a quadrilateral are congruent, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So in this case, since side AB is congruent to side CD and side BC is congruent to side DA, therefore ABCD is a parallelogram. So meaning to say, opposite sides are also parallel. Next theorem, Theorem 6-9. If an angle of a quadrilateral is supplementary to both of its consecutive angles, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So in this case, measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B is equal to 180, and the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle D is equal to 180. Therefore, we can say that ABCD is a parallelogram. Theorem 6-10. If both pairs of opposite angles of a quadrilateral are congruent, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Opposite angles means angle A and angle C are congruent, angle B and angle D are congruent. Therefore, ABCD is a quadrilateral, which is a parallelogram. Let's discuss problem 1 on textbook page 367.
In this problem, you will find values necessary for quadrilaterals to be parallelograms. For what value of y must quadrilateral PQRS be a parallelogram? Which theorem should you use? The diagram gives you information about the sides, so use theorem 6-8 because it uses sides to conclude that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Step 1. Find x. If both pairs of opposite sides of a quadrilateral are congruent, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So, for PQRS to be a parallelogram, the length of segment PQ must equal the length of segment SR. Subtract 2 times x from each side. Now add 5 to each side. So x equals 6. Step 2. Find y. Again, if both pairs of opposite sides of a quadrilateral are congruent, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So, for PQRS to be a parallelogram, the length of segment QR must equal the length of segment PS. Substitute 6 for x. Simplify to find y. So in order for figure PQRS to be a parallelogram, the value of y must be 8. Now grid your response.
Let's answer got it 1. Got it
1.
Use the
Use the
diagram,
diagram at the right.
For what values of x and y must EFGH be a parallel? So here is the figure. We have here a quadrilateral EFGH. Since we are given the measurement of the angles, we are going to use theorem 6-9 that states that for EFGH to be a parallelogram, consecutive angles needs to be supplementary. So here, we are going to look at consecutive angles. So in this case, H and E are consecutive angles. So therefore, we can say that the measure of angle E plus the measure of angle H is equal to 180. So let's simplify and divide by 4 to both sides, and it will be y is 40. Now, look at the other part. Also, angle G and angle F are supplementary because they are consecutive angles. So 12x plus 7 plus 4x plus 13 is equal to 108. Simplify, divide by 16, so x is 10. So for quadrilateral EFGH to be a parallelogram, y should be 43 and x should be 10. Theorem 6-11. If the diagonals of a quadrilateral bisect each other, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So bisect means AE is congruent to CE because they are bisected at point E. And also BE is congruent to DE. Therefore, the parallelogram is this ABCD is a parallelogram. Theorem 6-12. If one pair of opposite sides of a quadrilateral is both congruent and parallel, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So if BC is congruent to DA and also BC is parallel to DA, therefore ABCD is a parallelogram. Let's discuss problem 2.
In this problem, you will decide whether a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Can you prove that the quadrilateral is a parallelogram based on the given information? Explain. Part A. You are given that the length of segment AB is 5 and the length of segment CD is 5. You are also given that the degree measure of angle A is 50 and the degree measure of angle D is 130. Can you prove that figure ABCD is a parallelogram? How do you decide if you have enough information? If you can satisfy every condition of a theorem about parallelograms, then you have enough information for a proof. The sum of the measure of angle A and the measure of angle D is 180. That means same side interior angles A and D are supplementary, so segment AB is parallel to segment CD. Since segment AB is congruent to segment CD, and you also just proved that they are parallel, figure ABCD is a parallelogram by theorem 6-12. So yes, you can prove that ABCD is a parallelogram with the information given. Part B. You are given that segment HI is congruent to segment HK, and that segment JI is congruent to segment JK. Can you prove that figure HIJK is a parallelogram? You are given that two pairs of consecutive sides are congruent. But by theorem 6-8, you need to show that both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, not consecutive sides. So no, you cannot prove that figure HIJK is a parallelogram with the information given.
Okay, so got it too. Can you prove that the quadrilateral is a parallelogram based on the given information? Explain. So we are given that EF is congruent to GD and segment DE is parallel to segment FG. So we need to prove whether DEF is a parallel. So this is the given. DE is parallel to GF and DG is congruent to EF. So is this quadrilateral a parallelogram? So the answer is no. In order for DEF to be a parallelogram, one pair of sides must be both congruent and parallel. So meaning to say, since DE is parallel to GF, this will only be a parallelogram if also DE is congruent to GF. So again, remember that one pair of sides must be both congruent and parallel for this quadrilateral to become a parallelogram.
In this problem, you will identify parallelograms. A truck sits on the platform of a vehicle lift. Two moving arms raise the platform until a mechanic can fit underneath. Why will the truck always remain parallel to the ground as it is lifted? Explain. As the arms of the lift move, what changes and what stays the same? The angles the arms form with the ground and the platform change. But the lengths of the arms and the platform stay the same. The angles of figure PQRS change as the platform, segment QR, rises. But its side lengths remain the same. Both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. So figure PQRS is a parallelogram by theorem 6-8. By the definition of a parallelogram, segment PQ is parallel to segment RS. Since the base of the lift, segment PS, lies along the ground, the platform, segment QR, and therefore the truck will always be parallel to the ground.
Got it 3. What is the maximum height that the vehicle lift can elevate the truck? Explain. So, the maximum height that the vehicle lift can elevate the truck is determined by this side, QP and RS. Since QP and RS are 6 feet, so if you are going to move this side perpendicular to the ground, so this will be the maximum height that the truck can be lifted. So how many feet is that? So it will be lifted at 6 feet maximum. When are you going to achieve, or when will it occur? It will occur when this side QP and side RS will be perpendicular to the ground. That will be the maximum height where the vehicle can be lifted, when QP and RS will be perpendicular to the ground, and the height of that, the maximum elevation, will be determined by how long is QP and RS. So since they are 6 feet, so the maximum height the vehicle can be lifted is 6 feet, and that will occur only if QP and RS are perpendicular to the ground. Now let's discuss the different summarization of our lesson. So here, to prove that both pairs of opposite sides are parallel, so that is the definition of parallelogram. So prove that both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. So this is theorem 6-8. So prove that an angle is supplementary to both of its consecutive angles. That is theorem 6-9. Then prove that both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. That is theorem 6-10. Prove that the diagonals bisect each other. Theorem 6-11. And prove that one pair of opposite side is congruent and parallel. Theorem 6-12. So meaning these are the important notes for you to prove whether a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So that's all for today. I hope you understand our lesson, and please answer your practice exercises, homework, and lesson quiz independently.